Well, now that he knows, I'm sure he's not going to leave the Batcave without one. Here's your look at brand new McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Batman and Robin's Batman. The Dark Knight battles his greatest threats yet. Cold-hearted Mr. Freeze, venomous Poison Ivy, and the unstoppable brute known only as Bane. Batman finds himself at odds with his crime-fighting comrade Robin, no longer satisfied with his role as a sidekick. As Mr. Freeze threatens to unleash a new ice age upon the citizens of Gotham City, the dynamic duo, now joined by the heroic newcomer Batgirl, must learn to work as a team before Gotham City is put on ice. Sorely lacking in bat skates, we're going to go ahead and grab the tape measure and see how tall the George Clooney Batman stands from Batman and Robin. A strange choice, I feel, for McFarlane Toys to actually tackle the fourth Batman film and the least successful. Some could very well say that Batman and Robin was the nail in the coffin that killed the Bat franchise until eventually it was rejuvenated later with what we got with the Nolan verse. Anyways, though, Batman, with his pointed ears, of course, at the top of his cowl, the figure stands about 7 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 17.5 centimeters tall. Missing my chance to get that originally released Batman set that had George Clooney Batman already in it, along with the Val Kilmer Batman, and even though that is the only time that we've gotten a Val Kilmer Batman, I'm sure and convinced that we are going to be getting ourselves a Batman Forever wave at some point that also did have a Michael Keaton Batman, and it did also have a Christian Bale Batman, which I will bring in right now. Not the one that came from that set, but one that came from the Build-A-Figure Bane wave. One thing I did want to mention, though, about the Build-A-Figure Bane wave that had me thinking about this wave, couldn't help but notice that we get the cold-hearted Mr. Freeze as the Build-A-Figure for the set. I think rather instead, giving us a Jeep Swanson Bane would have made more sense, giving us Mr. Freeze as a fifth figure, and then giving us a more bigger and bulkier version of Bane. Because I'm sure we're never going to be getting that Jeep Swanson Bane, and even though I'm sure many people just hate that design of Bane, just to have that figure as part of Batman and Robin wave, would have preferred, I think, a Build-A-Figure Bane rather than a Build-A-Figure Mr. Freeze. Another figure as well we can bring in as well is the Tactical Suit Batman. This is the Ben Affleck Batman, which I think actually was part of that Batman wave as well. Not with this specific look necessarily, but I think in fact we did get ourselves a Ben Affleck that made the figure set of 5 instead of 4. So what does come include with the George Clooney Batman, you may be asking yourself? Well, everything that you see in front of you, as well as something you may not be able to see, just the corner top of the card. First, the figure comes included with a display stand. The stand itself is once again just that circular display with the DC logo printed, of course, down below. I think for movie tie-in figures, it probably would have made more sense to choose one color that's unique to that movie, or one that you think of right away with that movie. Batman Forever, for example, could be green. Batman and Robin, for example, could be like an ice blue. I think doing this in a nice blue DC logo would have been a nice touch and make this unique than any other stands that we've gotten so far. The figure as well comes included with a trading card. I believe this is just a corner top of the poster. You can see there's Poison Ivy's hair down below. Robin, I think, would be on this side here, and Mr. Freeze would be on the top. So they've literally just taken a cutout. I would, though, imagine, as we look at the rest of the 4 figures, because, of course, the 5th one being Mr. Freeze, we might very well be able to put together the puzzle, put together the poster puzzle. The only thing that's really would be missing then is the Mr. Freeze at the top, unless one of the figures also come include Mr. Freeze's card. Stay tuned to find out if that's true. On the back of the card, though, the real name is Bruce Wayne. It's a little more than a paragraph read. You can read for yourself if you so wish, and we'll just put that to the side. The figure for component pieces for Mr. Freeze, sadly, are just his legs. Sure enough, I could have easily started these series of reviews with looking at the figure that comes included with the torso. But I thought, though, considering this is a Batman and Robin wave, look at Batman first, likely maybe Robin next, we'll see. With Batman, though, you're only really getting the boots, or at least the top legs of Mr. Freeze, molded fairly well, I would say, in silver plastic. All the things that are blue accents in the movie are blue accent painted on the figure itself. Again, there's really not much really to show for here, at least. I mean, you can just put this next to Batman. You can kind of see he's going to be just a little bit bigger than Batman, although his legs are going to be about the same. The figure also comes included with these, which I would imagine would be shoulder pads. I don't know. I don't know how well this is really going to work with the figure. I'm sure it's just a case that it doesn't have to necessarily complete the figure. If you want to just leave it off Mr. Freeze altogether, you can certainly do that and just not have Mr. Freeze with ice shoulders. It also kind of looks like these would be ice slippers, although slipping around on the floor on ice slippers probably wouldn't be a good idea. Nicely done, though, in translucent blue plastic, but really, we really don't have anything to add this to until we get further on into the wave. We'll put those to the side as well. Again, I joked earlier the fact that the figure doesn't come included with any bat skates. One of those head-shaking moments, though, in the movie. While he doesn't come included with any bat skates, the figure also doesn't come included with, as you can see, anything else. No gripping hands either, so even if you wanted to maybe pillage something from another Batman accessory, you can't even have it really displayed in Batman's hands, because he doesn't even have gripping hands. The figure, what he does have, though, is some decent detailing and a decent likeness, I feel, to George Clooney. From all the sides, especially mostly here in the chin, I feel it does certainly look like George Clooney. Really, many people hated George Clooney's performance as Batman. I think it really wasn't his performance. I thought he was a good Bruce Wayne and an equally good Batman. It was just the writing that made everything atrocious. Like having a Bat card, like his Bat credit card. He never leaves the Batcave without it. Just total cringe moments. But I will say, though, like from a figure standpoint, it does look a lot like George Clooney. I looked at the nose, for example, and thought that something seemed off. Like his nose and especially the point for his cowl was kind of shifted to the side. But the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking it was just more my eyes playing tricks on me. In a way, it does kind of look a little bent, but I think it's probably just the way I'm looking at the figure. The one thing I will say, though, about the figure is the way they've cast this figure mostly in black plastic. If, though, we were to bring back in the card as a referencing point, you can see that in Batman's media posters and all the things that kind of are attached to Batman and Robin, and even really in the movie, the way the light hits Batman's suit, he seems to have a lot of bluish tint to it. And I feel like that doesn't really properly resonate here on the figure. Sure, yes, it's nicely cast in black plastic, and the details all look good on this, but I think the figure really could have benefited from having a little bit of a bluish highlight. Just some areas covering across the front of his torso, certainly areas around his mask as well, so he didn't look so stark and black like this. Whether we are going to be getting those, what would they be at the end of the movie? Those stupid things that he was wearing. Him, Robin, and Batgirl were all wearing sort of silver suits. Maybe we might get that for a future figure release. I hope not. I'm fine just to have this version of Batman. Now, this Batman, instead of actually having the Bat logo in orange or in yellow, he actually is doing this all in black. The black logo actually looks quite good, although it's a little harder to make it out because there's no real any other color on the figure. At least, though, the Bat logo and the Bat belt, utility belt, seems to be like it's more of a matte black plastic. So it's not as shiny as the rest of the suit. And in a way, though, even though it really needed a lot more color, it stands out just a little bit better. The figure does have a soft goods cape, and it's a decent material that they've used for this. It has a lot of give, it has a lot of width, and it has a lot of flow to it. Really like the look of this cape. One thing I didn't actually notice until I saw this on the figure, when you see things in movies and you don't think that you see them because everything is moving so fast. Batman half the time is running around, as you probably see right now. The one thing I never really knew about the suit was that Batman had Bat logos on the tops of his Bat boots. I don't really even think that was necessary. And yet, that's a detail I never noticed at all in the movie and only noticed now in the figure. The plastic is generally quite shiny, as you can see. He does have kind of more in the kneecap area and the elbow area, more matte plastic. So it does stand out a little bit, but it's not as bad. It certainly wouldn't have been as bad, like if, for example, the suit was colored just a little bit differently. Then you probably would have seen the kneecaps and the elbow pads standing out a little bit more like sore thumbs. He does also have the little blades on the sides of his gauntlets, on the sides of his gloves, for example. They're not super spiky. And again, a detail I would have never been able to see in the movie was the way that they're actually sculpted. They're sculpted less like points, and they're actually sculpted more like pointy waves. It's an interesting looking suit. Certainly one of the big things that people complain about for the suit, and I can certainly agree, is the fact that Batman has bat nipples. Don't think I wasn't going to go for the rest of this review without pointing out the fact that Batman and Robin have bat nipples. Apparently they did want to design this based on Roman statues, but I don't think it really conveyed that well when it translated that to an actual costume. I don't think that superheroes should ever really have nipples when it comes to their suits. That might be the only time, in fact, I say nipples in a review. Overall, though, it's a nice-looking Batman figure. I think really what he needed the most was a whole lot more color. Taking some of the cues, perhaps, from the card, he really needed a lot more blue highlights. Just, again, because it does need to break up a lot of the black because he's got so much on the figure's body. Now, for Batman's articulation, the head's going to be on a ball joint, so, of course, it does rotate all the way around. Batman's head does look up that high, which is really quite good, actually. The head does look down as well, and you can also have the figure rocking back and forth as well. As for the arms easily come out at 90 degrees, just because, again, he has the sculpting of the cape. The cape doesn't take up any space at all on the shoulders, so it's very easy to bring Batman's arms out at 90 degrees. And again, you can rotate them all the way around as well. The figure has a bicep swivel, a little bit tighter on my figure. Figure also has a double hinge on the elbow. And even though he doesn't have any means to grip any accessories that you may give him, at least the fist hands do rotate all the way around. Now, when it comes to his upper torso is actually sculpted in a way that it looks pretty seamless. Still, yeah, you can very obviously see the cut line on the side, but looking at from the front, it looks pretty solid, like it looks like it would only just be one piece. And yet the figure does have an upper torso ball joint. The figure has a lower torso ball joint as well. Softer plastic once again is being used for Batman's lower trunks, but the legs are splittable out. They are unratcheted joints after all. You can take the legs and move them forward, you can move them back, a swivel at the top of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee. And again, that completely overlooked point, the Bat logos on the tops of his boots. Did anyone even know that there were Bat logos on the tops of Batman's boots? Oh yeah, apparently the guy in the back who's holding his hand up. Okay, you were the only one, sir. For his ankles, they do move back and forth this way. He does have an ankle pivot. And Batman, again, does have toe articulation. What's rather interesting is on the bottoms of his feet, you can see it says UKCA. And of course, there's the peg on the bottom, the peg hole to attach onto a display stand. Of course, again, this being a Batman and Robin wave, I had to look at Batman first. Unfortunately, by looking at Batman first, it usually is the case. When it comes to these waves like this, we don't get anything in the way of starting our build. I think most of the time whenever we've looked at kind of the main character from a figure wave, he usually comes like with arms, with legs. There's always, of course, the tease that you have to buy other figures, and usually what they end up doing is the main characters don't get the good accessories or don't get the build-a-figure pieces. The characters that may be less likely people will be picking up usually are the ones that come with the heads. They come included like with the torsos, for example. All the incentive, of course, to reel you in and to ensure that you can be buying the entire wave. I did buy the entire wave, by the way, just an FYI, so we will be looking at the rest of the Batman and Robin figures in upcoming reviews. But I do like to look at this one. I don't love the movie Batman and Robin, still is my least favorite of the Bat films, but I didn't think that George Clooney was a bad Batman at all. I just chalk it up more up to poor writing. From a figure, it actually does look a lot like him. The sculpting is good, and I do think, if anything, there's too much black on Batman's suit. Again, me talking about Batman having too much black on his suit, but I did think that it needed a little bit of blue to break up the black. He has blue highlights in the movie, of course, the way the light hits it, and of course all the media posters and photos of Batman's suit all really resonate in the idea of having blue on that suit. I wish that some of it would actually make its way to this plastic release of him. As we now jump over to the rotisserie of Batman being displayed in its somewhat dynamic pose, unfortunately, it would make him even more dynamic if McFarlane's team could have included some sort of accessories and, of course, the means to hold him some gripping hands. I was checking around my other tote bags just to see if there was something sitting inside those bags of extra accessories. Maybe I could swap them out with another Bat pair of hands, and maybe then I could have Batman displayed with something other than just punching fists. Still, I would prefer, if anything, punching fists than a stupid Bat credit card. But considering this is the Caped Crusader and all, you would think that he'd have gadgets to wield. And I'm trying to think of other things that he would have had in the movie. He had those thermal bombs that, of course, he blows up Mr. Freeze's rocket with. And then he uses those little heat guns to thaw off the Boy Wonder and the rest of citizens of Gotham City. Speaking of accessories, by the way, even though he didn't come included with any, he did have at least the starting legs for Mr. Freeze, and those other things that I thought were shoulder pads. Now that I'm looking over at Batgirl, who gets packed along with Mr. Freeze's head and his shoulders, I think these are actually supposed to be something that clips around his hands, giving him sort of these weird kind of ice gloves. Either way, though, I don't know if I'm going to be displaying any of these ice effects with Mr. Freeze. Of course, time will only tell when we eventually get the cold-hearted villain together whether I will end up using any of these extra things that come included with these Batman figures or not. What do you guys think of George Clooney, though, as Batman? I'm going to throw this out as a question to you, the viewing audience. Do you think he was given the cold deal when it came to be portraying Batman? I think, honestly, he's not a bad Batman at all. His voice works for the Caped Crusader. He certainly did do well, I thought, as a Bruce Wayne. He just was, unfortunately, the result. He was the victim of poor writing. And that could be the thing. Like, you could get a great actor coming in to play a role, but if you have terrible writing, it doesn't matter at all who's underneath the cowl. But what do you guys think, though, of George Clooney portraying Batman? Let me know down below. Good, bad, You didn't really care either way. I certainly hope, though, you do care about the remaining reviews that we will be looking at. Of course, coming up, we will be looking at Poison Ivy, Batgirl, and Robin, the Boy Wonder. Probably not in that particular order. I don't know. I'll see what figures make the most sense when it comes to building Mr. Freeze. It could very well be Poison Ivy, because Poison Ivy has basically the torso, and I can make some use of the legs that I've gotten so far. Those videos will definitely be coming your way. In the meantime, hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, why not hit with a like? If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you're on board to see the remaining reviews of the Mr. Freeze Build-A-Wave of Batman and Robin figures, make sure, you hit that subscribe button down below and you're turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.